say, Avi Mori, Imi Morati. We say that our parents are our teachers. In Hebrew and English, our parents are our first teachers. And it took me a long time to be able to appreciate the Torah, the teaching that my mother taught me. And let me give you just a few, just thinking about this, jotting down a few different things that my mother taught me over the years. They also say that Kibud Av Ve'enu, the mitzvah, Torah's commandment of honoring your parents, is perhaps the most difficult mitzvah, especially because it's not contingent on how we feel about them. You know, when you're angry with your parents, when you're upset with them, you still have the responsibility to treat them with honor and respect. And it's even harder when your parent has Alzheimer's. So, in a way, my mother has taught me about the worst case scenario, in a way, the most difficult way that to observe this mitzvah. Ironically, or maybe not ironically, it's significant that my mother was extremely devoted to her parents. Extremely. She was very, very close to them. She was an only child. And she was always there. They were always with us. My mother and my grandmother, Ida Cohen, of blessed memory, my grandfather died many, many years ago, until her death, were speaking every day and took care of her every need. And that was an example for me, a very fine example. And I hope to live up to it to the best of my ability. Another thing I realized was, it took me a while to realize this as well, that whenever anybody sees a picture of my mother, they always comment, whether she's young or older, they always comment, wow, she's such a beautiful woman. Now, and then they look at me and they say, where'd you come from? But in all honesty, sometimes people who are physically beautiful, especially from childhood, my grandmother used to say that she used to walk with her in the streets of Brooklyn, and people would stop and say, what a beautiful girl you have. Very often it goes to their heads, and they become very self-centered or mean. They develop pride about them. My mother never let you know it. I never grew up thinking that she was a beautiful woman because she was just my mother, because it was never anything that she exhibited in her behavior. And that's a certain level of anava, of humility, that again, I only understood later. What I realized is, in fact, what a beautiful woman she was. And the fact that I never was able to feel that, to understand, except from other people's reporting to me, which happened from must have been a teenager or so, really stands to her character. And finally, the third thing was that I remember from her example to me, is that we always think of negative mitzvot, that is mitzvot of don't do this, don't do that, as being simply avoidance. But there's also a positive aspect to it. For example, the mitzvah not committing adultery. That's a negative mitzvah. But it doesn't tell you, that those words don't tell you about the do part of the mitzvah. And that is, phrased in another way, be loyal to your spouse. Be caring of your spouse. Never let your attention wander from your spouse. And my father and my mother together were incredibly devoted completely together, one to the other. There was never any question that they were in it for the long haul for just about 60 years. And that was, again, part of their character, her character, but as a couple, but also as an individual. I've also learned a lot about the mourning process. I'd like to share with you just a couple of those things in conclusion. The loss you feel is not apparent. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens very slowly. And sometimes not even linearly. It's very gradual, and sometimes seems happenstance. You just have it a little bit here, and then you go a couple days without it. So that's something that the loss has taught me. It's also taught me about the community, and so I really think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm very touched that so many people came to it. I was worried that we have a minyan, and I see we have a very, very, very healthy minyan, and that is very important to me. When we say the Kaddish, the whole point of the Kaddish is that you hear the people around you responding, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, and that's kind of a wash of comfort, of support that the mourner feels, and I feel it very much tonight. So I thank everybody for being here for me. And finally, something I mentioned a couple of Shabbatot ago, there's a big difference between being theory and practice. You can learn all the things that you have to do as a rabbi or as a Jew how you have to deal with people, how you have to comfort them in mourning, how you have to experience with them with their loss, to help them through their loss. But there's a big difference between learning that, which is kind of book learning, and then the kind of learning that you experience by actually doing it. The doing is a very, very different sort of learning. And so going through these past 30 days has taught me a lot about loss and about love and about the way we respond to each other as Jews, as people living together in community. So again, I thank you for being my community and for being there with me, and I hope that in the few weeks that I have left to be with you, that I can show you the same level of care and comfort. Thank you very much.